It's Friday, June 28th, and today I sit down with Kirk Liemohn and we talk about the situation where you don't have enough time to pull everything out of Jive and put it into the appropriate place inside of Office 365. We talk about different archive scenarios and things that we can do that allow for people to pull the content out and have it accessible for the future. Hi, and welcome to the Work Together Better podcast. This is your host, Danny Ryan. This is Three Wheels' official podcast about enterprise collaboration, how people, process, and technology combine to help organizations, departments, and teams work together better. I'm here with Principal Software Engineer Kirk Liemohn.
Hello.
Hey, Kirk.
Hey.
How's it going?
Fine.
You're a busy man, so I appreciate you taking the time to do this because I know you're just really busy. But a part along with that, I think, and this might help people, is that talking about this subject, which has, I don't know if it's becoming somewhat pronounced, I guess, now, which is people are coming to us to do a migration and there's not enough time. Mm-hmm. And we've been, we're a lot of our content's focused around Jive migrations, and Tommy and I have been having conversations about other types of migrations to Office 365. And I think some of these approaches that you're taking here are probably ones that we'll even look at in the future as we maybe look at other types of migration. So this conversation, I'm just really interested to hear what are our options, what are our approaches when it comes to the fact that someone needs to be off by this date and we're not able to do our standard process of how we migrate them out of Jive and into Office 365. You mind talking me through what those options are?
Sure. Our general process, so the utilities we have allow us to extract content from Jive, mm-hmm. and then Jive could even go away at that time after we extract everything. Okay. And we generally don't have it go away right then. We generally still have access to it. We continue to extract last minute, so we can get the most recent content. But once we extract from Jive, it could go away. Our next step in the process is we transform that content. We're basically changing links inside there that are pointing to other things, maybe links to users for sure, links to other content, because it's going to live in a new place, maybe on SharePoint somewhere, or maybe we know it's not going to be migrated, and we can kind of have a link to say it's not going to be migrated. Okay. And so extract, then transform, and then upload is the next main task. And of course, there we're putting its target environment, typically Office 365, and a lot of that is in SharePoint, and sometimes it surfaces in Teams in different ways. But and then, of course, after that, we have other operations that do validation and things of that nature. And we also migrate permissions. But to do all that takes a bit of work, takes a lot of planning, takes a lot of communication, takes a lot of discussing with the clients what the options are, making sure that they understand what they're going to get out of this. And then it also takes a lot of work on the client side to kind of say, okay, here's what I want to be in scope or out of scope. Here's what the target site should be maybe for this content, for every Jive place. Maybe we can kind of come up with an algorithm that says, okay, well, based on the Jive's URL, it's basically the same similar type of URL that it's going to in Office 365. But still, you have to kind of say, well, what's in scope and out of scope. Okay. And then we have other options around like not moving all content even within a place that's in scope. So maybe you want only the newer stuff to go. But that's a lot of effort there. So if you're really tight for time, the quickest thing we can do is an extract. Okay. And that extract doesn't involve as much planning in terms of like where is it going, because we have our extract of where it's going. It's a technical extract. We call it a technical archive. We give it to the client. It's part of our process anyways on any migration. We provide it to them. And it has everything we're able to get out of Jive, which is most of what's in Jive. And and it's basically a file system and a database. And it's technical. It's has to be handed off to someone that knows SQL, and will train that person on, here's some SQL queries that let you kind of find that content. But it also has to be handed off to someone that has access that's allowed to access all of the Jive data.
Because you have you have like, was it secret spaces in Jive, or like you've got
secret groups and private groups, and you have the spaces can be certainly permissioned so that not everyone has access to them.
Has access to it.
So
right.
they have read access to all this stuff, and it's can be confidential. So
is there any prep that we need to do before, like, we pointed at, like, is there any preparatory things that you do, like set up that you have to do before you point it at?
Yeah, so it does take time still. Even that takes time, and we can't pull from Jive in a day probably if you've got a lot of content, because we're using the Jive API, and the Jive API will only let us go so fast. So we set up in a migration environment that can take a few days, and we set that up in Azure typically, and then of course we're going to need information from the client, like how do we access Jive? We need an administrative account to access Jive basically, and of course the URL. But once we have that, then we're pretty good to go in terms of extracting stuff into the migration environment. And then the question is that enough?
Where do we go from there?
Right. You want to just say, okay, you're off of Jive. Now someone in IT in your organization can now get phone calls from everyone in your organization to go grab a document for them.
Can you go to this space, and then in here, I need you to read this last discussion about this.
Right. That's right.
What did I say there? Can you send me that PDF of,
Yes. So all that would be possible. Yes. It's just not scalable for an IT organization to handle requests like that. And of course, it's not timely for the end user to ask for it that way.
You have your content. It's just locked up in a box.
Yeah. So we've talked to other clients about making this archive a user accessible archive where it's permissioned for individual users. We have not done that yet. Okay. There's a couple of approaches there. We've even sized the effort to make one approach where we basically take all HTML content in Jive and save it as PDF in the file system. Okay. And then we have the file system permissioned by folder, by place, basically, a folder per Jive place. And then from then it's like searching the file system to find your stuff. And so it's going to have pretty much all the content there. And we can even make sure comments are part of that PDF. And PDF fidelity is not always going to be 100% when you transform HTML to PDF, but usually it's pretty good. So that's an option that we've definitely talked to clients about, and the clients would like to have that as an option. Whether they want to pay for it or not
is another thing.
Another question.
What's funny about this is just like the state of, like everybody wants to get off of file shares and like wants to do the enterprise social collaboration. Now this is taking that enterprise social collaboration, putting it on a file share.
If you've got to get off Jive quickly and need access for everyone to have, that's one option. The next one, which we've explored but haven't explored very deeply, is we do have this migration environment. We could put a website in front of it and secure it and have people authenticate to it, and then they would only be able to access the stuff. Serve up the information.
The stuff they had access to in Jive, they'll have access in this environment.
Yes,
but it's a read-only. It's a read-only environment.
Right, it'd be read-only. You wouldn't go in and like someone else's comment or anything like that, but you would be able to see it, and you'd be able to maybe download binaries and stuff like that.
But it's an archive, so that if you need to reference it in the future, you can at least see the conversations and the content.
And that would, both of those approaches have definitely some value for clients, and we just haven't done those approaches. Right now, it's just the technical archive where we hand off a file system and a database to the IT organization, and then you can basically go through that organization to get help. We can take that archive later and then migrate it. So if they, and we've definitely done that before. So we've done migrations for clients before where they say, okay, only migrate half our content, whatever it is. And then they come back later and say, oh, could you really migrate these 3 other spaces? And then we can say, yes, we gave you the archive, right? You still have that? Okay, good.
So you can incrementally go pull something out that you've done, that you did before.
As long as we've extracted it, we can do it. So, and we have done that before.
Yeah. Interesting.
So it's all there. It's just a matter of how quick do you need it, and ideally it goes to Office 365. That's what most enterprises are in. That's where they want their users to be. So it just takes some effort to get it there. We have to transform this Jive HTML. Got to get it into kind of SharePoint HTML. Got to get it on the right SharePoint site. Got to get the permissions within that SharePoint site.
Yeah.
We've got to have conversations with the client about which SharePoint site it goes to. Are you going to merge 2 Jive places into a single SharePoint site? Just a lot of conversations that have to happen that don't have to happen if you're just talking about, hey, we want an extract.
Yep. It's been interesting to see some of these too, where they've come up, where one company's bought another company, and we've seen some of those as well, where they're trying to pull the company that was bought, their Jive instance into it, and it's been it's good to. So from my understanding, let me see if I can play this back to you. It sounds like it's not trivial, but there's the steps to go extract all the data is something that can be done within a relatively short period of time.
Yep.
It's the question of what do we do from there. It's the question of if it needs to go somewhere, where is it going, and then if we're just doing an archive, by default it's pretty raw. The way that we set it up, it's a database and a bunch of files and a folder structure. Cool. This is. I'm glad what's interesting to see is this addresses our initial problem, which is, Jive's going to be turned off at the end of the month, and oh, by the way, you want your content, and if you think of what the value of that content is, especially for the longer term pieces of content, the content that somebody wants to have access to in the future, it's the time that somebody spent on working on that document that you're losing if you don't get that thing.
Right.
If you don't pull that out, and if it's a piece of corporate knowledge that you need to have in the future, what's the loss of you have to recreate that, and sometimes that person's no longer around.
They can't remember.
So I think it's really important for us to have that capability of extracting out the content as soon as we can, and then based upon their needs, where does it go? Ideally, I think it goes into, we're moving it over in Office 365, but I'm glad you guys have some options for people, because it's coming, because a lot of people, are coming, and there's just not, I always tell people I like to have 8 to 9 months at least, and that's not the case.
Yeah. I mean, it in the end, it does depend on how much content you have, but just getting past the hurdle of a small number of content does take time. So we have to kind of do that prep work and all that other stuff. Yeah. And but we do have a workshop, which I'm sure you've mentioned lots of times. And,
sure.
And if in that workshop we can discuss things like, well, what does the extract have that, or what does it miss from Jive? So, for example, we don't have home pages. We have content. We don't have those home pages within Jive places.
Yeah.
There's a couple other things we don't have, status updates like I'm going to lunch and stuff like that. But in large part, we've got a lot of what you have in Jive. So.
Awesome. I'm going to let you get back to your projects, because I know you're a busy man. Thanks so much for spending your time with me, Kirk. Thanks for all. It's amazing what you guys are doing on projects, and keep up the great work. And we just talked a little bit earlier with Perry and him working on some of the utilities. It's amazing what you guys are building out there, and the capabilities that you guys are giving to us as an organization to really help people retain that content. because a lot of this content is really important to these organizations, and getting it out is very important.
Yeah, he's getting one more new piece of content we didn't have in the extract. I was about to say we don't have this, and it's like, oh wait, Perry just did the work to make it.
He mentioned it earlier. What was it? He said
bookmarks, I think.
Bookmarks.
Yeah.
So
before we didn't have those in our extract, we now have it.
Nice.
I think.
Nice.
So
very good. Keep up the great work.
All right, thanks
for doing this. Thanks to everybody for listening. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Work Together Better podcast. We're available on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you're looking for a partner to help you craft a modern digital workplace on the Microsoft Cloud, please come by and see us at 3will.com. That's the number 3 spelled out, WILL.com. Thank you and have a great day.